As a daughter of an immigrant family, I feel like my roles were a bit different compared to my brothers. Maybe other immigrant cultures can relate to this too, but usually they put more stress on the daughters.
I don't know, I just sometimes I think back on my childhood memories and I'm like, I was just I just felt so bad about my grades so much of the time that I was a child, where I wish I didn't have to worry about it as much.
The cultural, I think, expectations of a daughter is something that I have been grappling with for quite a while. I think the expectation is you don't talk back, you respect your parents. What they say is law. Whatever they set the rules to be in the house, you obey them no matter what.
Being the only child and being the girl, I feel like it's just the worst combination ever. It's like a hate-love relationship, but I think the hate really overpowers it, and it just really traumatizes you as an individual. Definitely a lot of things I do, I don't mention to my parents, and they're not crazy things. It's literally just going out to the bar, getting a drink, and coming back home.
I think being the eldest in my family has played a big role. It has impacted me, let's say, to a great extent. I got to mature a lot quicker, and for my siblings, I was more of another parent than a sibling. So sometimes it has its pros, its cons.
Alright, so I'll just have you start with your name, your pronouns, and your ethnicity.
My name is Stephanie King, and my pronouns are she and her. And what?
And your ethnicity.
Oh, and I'm Hmong. My ethnicity is Hmong.
Okay, my name is Sneha and my pronouns are she, hers. My ethnicity is South Asian, so I'm actually from India, and I grew up here in America, in Portland for the most part actually. And the region in India that my family is from is called West Bengal, so the city is Kolkata. I am Bengali is how you would say it, yeah.
My name is Mariangela Cervantes Juarez. My ethnicity is, I identify as first generation Mexican American, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
My name is Monica. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm Vietnamese.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I go by she, her. I am Hispanic, born in Mani, Yucatan, Mexico.
So to me personally, being Hmong American means that I can educate people in America about the Hmong people and our history, because a lot of the Hmong people my age, they don't speak Hmong anymore. I have a lot of cousins and relatives who don't know a single Hmong word, but growing up in my family, my parents really stress the importance of embracing my culture and talking in our language and all of that. So to me personally, I think it's just bringing awareness about Hmong people to everyone around me and speaking in Hmong to keep my culture alive.
I thought about that question a lot, and I've kind of had trouble putting an answer to what does it mean to be Mexican American. And I think for me it means being a part of two at times very different cultures. Sometimes it feels like I'm picking and choosing the best portions or the best parts of American culture and Mexican culture. And I think together they make for a really interesting lived experience. I think there's, really good things about Mexican culture, and I think there's really great things about American culture, as funny as that may sound. So yeah, I guess for me, being Mexican American, I guess means trying to, make the best of both worlds, and yeah.
I mean, for me, being Indian American is my whole identity. Like, I completely identify myself as more Indian, I would say, but in the way I lived my life, it's very equally split. Like, I live with my parents, and we are very, cultural family. So I grew up listening to a lot of Bengali music, watching Bengali TV shows and film, actually just really consuming a lot of different kinds of Indian media, not just Bengali. I also grew up doing Indian classical dance and vocals. And obviously just growing up here in America, you naturally have the American side, the American culture and all the things that come with growing up in America, but it is kind of tweaked a little bit because you have this other side and this other culture that you play into.
I think to me, being Vietnamese American is showing your own culture through your lens. And so what I mean, the American part is growing up in America. Of course, everything's going to be Americanized to a certain extent compared to my parents who are full Vietnamese. And I think to be Vietnamese American, I have to take their cultural lens and then adapt it to my own. And I guess kind of maneuver around and understand why my culture thinks the way it does, why they do certain things, eat, dress a certain way they do. I guess it sounds weird, but we're Americans, and people who don't have the same background than me can understand, kind of simplify in a way, and kind of, I guess, also change very old ways of thinking from Vietnamese culture and kind of Americanizing it to a way I feel like there's less expectations, less pressure, changing different views and opinions from my parents that obviously I probably won't agree with and don't agree with. But yeah.
Being Mexican American is something that kind of we have to adapt to. For me, it was a very young age. I was brought here when I was 4, almost 5. So it means a lot just staying in touch with my cultural background, being Mexican, and then adapting to this new culture that got just thrown at me when I was brought here. So it took a lot, learning a new language and just adapting to their lifestyle.
Who raised you? Because you guys were still pretty strict because we didn't have sleepovers and I couldn't hang out with my friends anywhere.
Well, you were with me or with your grandma all the time. There was no.
Well, no, I had to tag along. That's right. They were big on that. Anyways, here's my mom in school. Here she's working in the kitchen.
Volunteers I got, and they gave me free cinnamon rolls. That's why I know.
Food is a very big love language in our family, and for my mom, it's very true. There's one that's a really good one of when you guys first got here. I think this is a really good one of my mom's family. I think they're just missing Tia Viridiana. I don't know where she went.
Yeah, no, I didn't come to this country because I wanted to come. It was more something that my parents decided for me. But then again, when DACA came, I realized that that wasn't for me either, because I came young. I was brought by my parents, but I was too old for DACA at that time. So I was like, oh, well. It's like, it seems like I either get late to the things or I think that it's going to be different. So I have to say, over 30 years in this country, it's been challenging in different ways. So yeah, I don't know. I cannot complain because I got married here. I have 3 good kids. very proud of my 3 kids. So I have no complaints. I wouldn't change it, even if I have to start and go through the whole thing again and all the work, because we worked before school, we worked during summer, Christmas breaks, because that's part of an immigrant. That's what you have to do. You don't come here to get free food or, like people talk about and like, oh, do it the right way. There's no right way for Mexican immigrants. It's a completely different story. And no, there's no benefits, there's no free money, there's no free food. So I had to work since I came to this country. So yeah, no, believe me, it wasn't what I thought when we were coming this way in the bus, with my siblings thinking, oh yeah, we're going over there. I think I was picturing a vacation trip more than a completely new life. So yeah, it was interesting. That much I can tell you.
I think, yes, definitely in my culture, there is a very big unspoken role when you're a daughter, and it's you have to take care of the family. You have to be there for your parents. You have to embody everything they want and they've always wanted to be, is what it is.
I definitely struggled a lot with like math and science, and South Asian parents have this expectation that Indian kids should be able to be geniuses, and you're compared to like every outlier of the most genius like child to ever be born. Like just like any news article that comes out about some like random South Asian kid that did like cured cancer, you would be compared to that person, or like peers and things like that. So I feel like that was really difficult for me growing up, and like it defined a lot of like my childhood, feeling like I'm disappointing them or unable to keep up with their academic expectations from me, and that was really difficult and contributed a lot to like having imposter syndrome or just like not believing in myself or thinking that I'm smart, because I always felt that, well, if it's not 100%, then like 80% doesn't matter.
They're immigrants, so you're a daughter of an immigrant. It comes with different things. One being cautious, and just kind of like you grow up with them telling you, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. It can have its consequences. You're more like prone to like other treatment than if you were born here and being a citizen. So you definitely grow up with that like cautiousness and being stronger on like, even though you are here undocumented or as an immigrant, you still have rights and you still have that, but you have to be extra careful because you don't know the outcome that it will be if those things happen to you. So definitely it has made me realize like being cautious and more thoughtful of my actions.
I don't think I actually really valued freedom until after I graduated college. I came back home to live with my family and all of that stuff. I feel like I don't have as much freedom as I used to have in college. And yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things, because I prefer to like do stuff without having to ask for permission and all of that stuff.
As the eldest, I think I knew what was happening before my siblings did. I'm thinking in terms of like my parents' legal status in the US. So I think for me, that was like a really pivotal, really like core component of my childhood. My mom, would talk about like what the plan was if, God forbid, they were deported. But I know that was like huge for me growing up. It was a huge thing that I was like constantly in fear of, and like thinking like, oh man, if something happens to them, I have to take care of my siblings. I wouldn't be given guardianship because, again, I was a minor, I was little, but I was definitely aware of it always.
In the house, did they teach you at home? Do you have to like go through like some kind of language school for it?
Okay. I grew up speaking in Hmong fluently because my mom, both of my parents are immigrants. But my dad went to school, but when my mom came here, she was too old to be able to go to school. She doesn't really know a lot of English. So then growing up, we always spoke in Hmong. And I remember when I finally went to school, I didn't know a single English word, despite growing up here. But I think it has more to do with my mom wanting us to not lose our culture. Yeah.
I definitely believe that having control of the language gives you access to the culture, which then having control of the language and having access to the culture, at least I think, gives you access to the religious component. Because I can think of myself, like, I don't know how to pray in English. I don't know any of the prayers in English. I don't know any of the hymnals or any of the, like, I don't know Catholicism in English. I can't practice it in English, but I can do it in Spanish. And I'm able to have access to Catholicism, which then is tied to culture, at least in my eyes, at least for Mexican culture. It's tied, and again, it's all granted access to culture and religion because of the language.
I did go to Vietnamese school for a while, but because we were so busy with work and my grandparents getting old, nobody could take me anymore. And so I stopped at second grade. So that was probably at the age of like 10 or 12. And I guess I picked up the basic necessities of like reading and writing. And so I just kind of carried on with me throughout as I get older. I definitely owe it to my parents. Everywhere I go, when I speak Viet, everybody's so surprised. They're like, "You're so fluent. Like, are you born in America?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." They're like, "How are you so good at it?" And I'm like, just growing up, I barely spoke English. And so, yeah, going everywhere, I always spoke Viet with my parents. Going to the store, it was Viet. The only time I spoke English was to the cashier when my parents didn't know what to say. But yeah.
Our language is the Mayan language. That's our native from our hometown. It's kind of losing its track, but some people are trying to bring it back and teaching new generations. But I went to school in Mexico for the first few years, like kindergarten, preschool type thing, and they would not recommend, but they would require you to learn that language. So it would be Spanish and Mayan.
Okay, so I speak Bengali, and I grew up speaking it. So my parents had a rule of in the house and in the car, you always speak Bengali. Like when I'm around my family, you're only allowed to speak Bengali since I was like a literal baby. So Bengali, I would say, was like my first language. And then when you go to school and like from watching TV and like playing with other kids, you naturally pick up English. Like that is a given.
So for you, it's more unique because it's like, what's it like being the only child in an immigrant family, and especially being a daughter in an immigrant family as the only child?
For me, being the only child and a daughter and the eldest, it's like my parents' first time for everything. Where I think there's times and moments where my parents realize, maybe I could have said this differently, but that comes very far after the thing they said, And I think the biggest thing they've had to learn with having me is that how do they understand mental health and depression and just like all of that stuff, because it's very much a myth and it's not a thing for them. It's very taboo. I know my mom and dad have always told me, like, we just want you to be happy. Growing up is always, we just want you to be happy. You're most innocent, you're most playful, you're most youthful, And I realized, like, over time, to be that, I had to put on a very fake personality and attitude in front of them when I wasn't happy. And they said that we only have you. We want a lot coming from you. We want to see a lot from you. We want you to do good things. We want you to be a good person. If I were to show a negative face, or like if I were to say something that went against what they said, it would automatically feel like they didn't approve of me. They didn't want me as a daughter. And there were times and days where they would not talk to me. They would ignore me. And it was for the most smallest things, now that I think about it. And it was hard because that definitely trained me to like over time to give more of what I needed to give, and like people around me too. I remember going home, they were like, we gave you everything. Like, why would you be sad? Like, there's people who are homeless. Like, they should be sad. You shouldn't be sad. And I sat there and I was like, how do I tell them, like, all my trauma growing up? How do I tell them all the time that I couldn't express myself? It was really hard. But I remember I was like, I shouldn't try. So then I just told myself, schoolwork is stressing me out. And I think it was really hard because I still haven't told them to this day that it wasn't just school. It was definitely more than that. My dad definitely did not take it very well. He was very upset. And it wasn't the fact that I tried to hurt myself. It was the fact that it would make our family look bad, that they had somebody like me in the family. And in that moment, I don't think I could even predict what my parents were going to do. But all they said was, why did you not spit them out? Why did you spit out the pills? Why did you think of us when you did that? Why did you think about what people would think of us when you did that? And it was always the us part, the other people part. It was never me. I think it's the most hurtful thing I've ever heard my mom say. And to this day, I hope and I pray that it was just out of pure frustration. But she said, you know what, just kill yourself. I won't even care about you. You just make us look really bad. And it was, it was hard to hear. And I guess it was also hard to process that. Because in that mental state, I was like, why didn't it work? Why am I still here? Why did it have to be this way? Why could they just be American? It sounded awful in my head. I was like, why are they such terrible parents? And I just questioned everything possible around me. I had to learn to forgive them. And it's not like making excuses for them, but it's kind of like I had to remind myself that they worked with what they had. And they did what they were familiar with. And they did what they could. And what they were familiar and felt safe doing. Because I also know that they have a lot of their own trauma, things that they weren't able to process. And so definitely I've had to learn to forgive them. And I constantly had to remind them that you're a great parent. But I'm also an individual too. Like you gave birth to me. You have so much expectations in me. For me to do everything, to meet your expectations, to make you proud, you have to trust me. And that's like the biggest thing. I have to push back and tell them that just trust me. It's the biggest thing.
I don't regret anything. Like, I think it has helped me become the person that I am today and kind of value the hard work that they've put in and kind of getting that work in earlier and just kind of understanding what to improve on for later in life when I have my own family. So
it's just, constantly grappling with some guilt of doing things that, the church wouldn't agree with necessarily. But at the end of the day, I tried to be a good person, I think there's definitely a point in my life where I was like, man, like, you know, like my friends are, you know, like in this like progressive left-leaning space, they're talking so much crap about religious people, specifically like Christians. And I was like, wow, like I'm not like that. And then I was like, oh no, I'm doing the like not all men, but like about Catholics. Like, oh no, how do I remedy that? And you know, the conclusion that I came to is like, I just have to prove that I'm not, you know, a bigot essentially, and that like, you know, just because I'm Catholic doesn't mean that I believe that, you know, we should harm people based on who they love or who they're attracted to or the decisions that they make with their body.
My family definitely treats me in the best way, like, I don't want to say like a baby, but my parents definitely give me the freedom to be a child when I want to be a child. Like, they don't put adult pressures on me unless I kind of bring them on myself. I think that's why they don't put that pressure on me, because they've kind of struggled through that. They've been through that. They know that they don't want me to go through that unless I absolutely need to. So that's like where it comes from.
In the Hmong community, we have a lot of city councils and mayors who are Hmong, but usually they're Hmong women, not men. The Hmong community is more patriarchy-like, so it's usually worshiping the men, but considering that nowadays more Hmong women are starting to climb up, and a lot more of the Hmong women go get higher education. The Hmong community is starting to like respect women more. So I think that's changed a lot of how being feminine and the Hmong culture is supposed to be like.